thank you everyone for being here. I'm Puneet Badlani. I'm from AWS, been here for about 2.5 years. I'm a solution architect on Connect, dedicated to Connect. Welcome to the session. We have our customer TELUS and our partner Zendesk. I'll allow them to introduce themselves. And what we're going to talk about today is the journey that TELUS, along with Zendesk, has had to move from where they were to where they are now and where they're going next. We'll keep about 5-10 minutes at the end for questions, so feel free to jump in at the end and let's get started. Jamie.
Sounds great. Hi, I'm Jamie Tim. I'm from TELUS and TELUS Digital. TELUS is a telco company in Canada, and TELUS Digital is a CX transformation born from a BPO. And so I sit in kind of a dual role where I'm responsible for the CX technology for TELUS, as well as our professional services team for CX transformation globally.
Jonathan Bruce. I'm now the GM and Vice President of Contact Center at Zendesk. So our business was acquired about 3 weeks ago to form the foundation of the Contact Center offering for Zendesk, which is super exciting. So this relationship was pre and post acquisition, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Quick note about what I do at AWS. I'm, like I said, a partner solution architect. I have a global role where I look at tools, strategies, and initiatives to help our partners grow their business. Feel free to connect with us afterwards. Come to our booth. We would love to showcase Connect more deeper. We have a Ask the Expert desk, so if you have any questions about Connect specific to your environment, more than happy to help you with those. To get us started, Jamie, could I ask you to talk about where you were before you started this journey? Talk a little bit about your technical landscape. What are the pain points that you were facing back when you weren't on Connect?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a legacy on-prem environment. We have about 12,000 agents from a TELUS standpoint on the products that we're talking about. And one of the challenges that we had was scaling around demand, right? Because we were largely reliant on humans within availability zones, we had to scale up when demand scaled up, which is a cost from the business standpoint that we knew that there were opportunities to get around. We also had a challenge with continuity of context for customers who had to call back multiple times. And so one of the things that we were excited about looking at is how could we use technology to ease some of those pain points, and that's one of the things we'll talk about today.
Yeah. Any specific pain points that you can talk about what you faced? I know you mentioned about scaling up and down,
yeah.
But how about operational issues or things like that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've long done is we've used a global workforce around our CX offering for TELUS. And because of that, when we're handling multiple languages, one of the challenges for us has been essentially staffing for all those different language capabilities and staffing up for the various demand cycles that we have. So Black Friday is obviously a key piece for us, near the end of the calendar year and into January, which would drive a lot of spikes, and being able to handle sales calls at the same time that we're handling things like billing calls that don't have the same level of urgency during those time periods was something that was causing us a lot of challenge, making sure that we were taking advantage of the opportunity in front of us while still making sure that we could resolve those must handle intents for our customers as well.
Awesome. So can you talk a little more about what was the impetus that caused you to look out for change? What was the process there? Why did you feel that you now need to do something differently? What was that process and journey like?
Yeah, so because of the orientation we have toward transformation for the other side of the role that I was talking about, we've been looking at what technologies were out there that we could use to transform at TELUS. And I think fortunate for us, there's a mandate from our CEO around technology and transformation and moving toward what's next. It really gave us a great foundation and platform for what began as, I'll call it like experimentation toward an end, right? In a very, quick way to get outcomes, and then broadening of that across the business. And so we're really fortunate to, I think, have leadership across the board that understood what the opportunity of a more technology first solution, and how that could complement our human team members and augment their capabilities. And so that really helped with the platform for change. The other thing that's been really useful for us is through our partnership with Jonathan's team and Puneet's team and other folks in the telecom business, we're always talking with other folks about how they're solving their business problems. And we found some commonality in case studies that Jonathan's team brought forward that really excited us about what the solution could look like. And so we had the opportunity to talk to some peers about the challenges they faced pre and post, and that really helped us accelerate kind of implementation. Because it's always nice, right, to be able to talk to other folks that sit in your shoes to say, what was it like for you? What was the process like? How quickly did you get to outcomes? And we used that as the basis for the business modeling we did to predict what the efficiency gain would be, what the benefits would be as we put that forward. And it also helped from a change management standpoint because we had the understanding of how we could guide the teams through that and how to do that in a really fast manner, which allowed us to, from an outcome standpoint, prove that out and then broaden the use across our CX base.
I walked through some of TELUS's contact centers when we were sort of first scoping, and what was kind of striking to me is the passion of the team. I think sometimes it gets lost, like agents wake up in the morning like not wanting to do a bad job. They wake up because they want to serve customers.
Absolutely.
But there's frustrations, right? Like pre-implementation, they had like 15, 20 different tabs and multiple different screens. And you sort of, the technology should get out of the way and support the agent rather than getting in the way. And that was for me like a real aha moment when I walked around and kind of listened to some of the agents. Sometimes like reducing the cognitive load or kind of simplifying the technology stack in and of itself. Like I know all we're talking about is AI this week, but actually sometimes the biggest things that have impact probably aren't AI. They're actually just doing some of the basics really well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you bring that because I started my career as a call center agent way back. And that's something that experience of sitting for a year and a half answering 100 calls a day, that kind of has formed my opinion around technology and an emphasis on usability, the human interface, the UI interface, and not only looking at the customer as a stakeholder, but also as the agent, because they're equal part of the equation. So great that you guys did that.
Yeah, and I think Jonathan mentioned that at the beginning, but that was a practice that we held together throughout the implementation, right? Continuing to get the teams, in our delivery centers, sitting next to agents, observing the pain points, fine-tuning once we had launched the product to look at how we could continue to make things better. And I think that partnership of sitting next to agents, making that happen is one of the keys to success because you can empathize with the challenges a lot better when you can see them than when you're getting roll-up reports of, what thematically the issues are. You can see it like that when you walk the floor.
We actually had like some of the team leads sort of become champions, and they were sort of synthesizing some of the feedback from their subgroups. And so like every day we were kind of pivoting. We'd have a list of like, these were the improvements, tweak, overnight, it would deliver the next day. I've sort of not been involved in a project that was that buttoned up in terms of like getting the feedback from the floor, but it made such a big impact to turn around kind of improvements that quickly. And we've actually used that now in kind of that philosophy in kind of some of our other deliveries as well.
Yeah, so that overnight thing, let's park that for a minute, and I would love to come back on that. But the question that I want to ask next to you, Jamie, is, we know TELUS a fair bit. We know you've been in the contact center industry for a fair amount of time with 12,000 agents. You do have a depth of technical expertise in-house. So a two-part question. Why did you feel the need of a partner when you went on this journey, and why Zendesk/Local Measure?
Yeah. So I think we, like I mentioned, we had the experience of being able to talk to other customers, and we knew the expertise that the team was bringing to the table around this particular challenge that we were having. And I think it's always smart, regardless of what capabilities you have in-house, to augment, to partner, to find the expertise to be able to bring value the fastest, right? And so one of the benefits, I think, of that partnership is we've been able to collaboratively build a relationship where we can take what we've learned at TELUS and go do it other places. And so I don't think we would have been able to do that had we gone it alone, right? I think the outcomes probably would have been delayed, and we probably wouldn't have had as great of an implementation, because the expertise and the nuance that the team could bring to the table and quickly, make those things happen just wouldn't have been possible on our own.
I mean, we just sort of finished a delivery with Vodafone in New Zealand, sort of One New Zealand, and kind of connected the teams.
Yep.
And I think you also spoke to Telstra.
That's right.
And some others. So kind of sometimes we kind of imagine that we're the only company with a specific set of problems. And in fact, a lot of the problems are homogenous across others. So
Yep.
taking some of those learnings. I mean, specifically, I think that one of the really cool outcomes from the TELUS project was the ability to service customers 24/7. So pre-Amazon Connect and Zendesk, the contact centers ran sort of Canadian working hours, right?
That's right.
And after hours, there'd be sort of a message on the IVR saying, we'll be open again tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the really cool things we did was opened up the IVR to 24/7. So when you call in to TELUS after hours, it's like, hey, our voice agents are kind of finished for the day, but press 1, we'll deep link you into the TELUS app, and an expert will pick up the messaging conversation. And so as well as being more efficient, because those experts can handle multiple asynchronous conversations, again, this is brilliant basics. None of this is super difficult tech, but it's taking folks from like an expensive channel, which is voice, giving them an option for 24/7, moving them into an app experience, which is really nice. It's asynchronous, so they can go and cook and then come back. And it sort of smooths the peaks and troughs as well for the contact center, because now people can chat outside of hours in Canada, and you can service it in other parts of the world where it's much cheaper.
Absolutely.
There's no urgency, they're going to close at 6 o'clock, I need to talk to them before that. I can do it at a later point in time that suits me more.
Yeah.
But Jonathan brings up an interesting point that I really love about the Connect community, I'll say. Whether it's our partners or our customers, the way they collaborate. And I come from a background where I've been a partner to OEMs, and there's always that frenemy kind of a thing where partners, because it's end of the day a competitive landscape, but the way I've seen Connect partners collaborate and share knowledge and skill, and what Jamie's also talked about, talking to other customers and learning from each other. This is something that I've seen in our Connect partner and customer community, which I love. I have a colleague, Matt, in the service team, who's recently went to UK and did a voice of the customer, and the way the customers banded together to share information, to share learnings and give us feedback, it was an amazing thing. And we did a similar thing yesterday, and Jonathan was there. We brought in our partners, and the openness with which they shared and talked about what they're doing, what's working, what's not, was really refreshing, and that's one thing that I really like about our community. So, moving a little forward, Jonathan, could you talk more about the journey of how you engaged with TELUS, and at this point probably deep dive about that overnight thing?
Yeah.
I found that really interesting, because a lot of customers and partners have a longer go-to-market. Yes, we love our partners for reducing that go-to-market, but that overnight word really caught me, and would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should just take a step back and kind of explain the TELUS business slightly, and I'll do it from a lay term, and then maybe Jamie can jump in. But obviously, there's the flagship carrier in Canada, one of the most iconic brands in the world, one of the market leaders for telco services in Canada. Then there's the digital business, which also has implementation and kind of services to deliver things like Amazon Connect and Zendesk, with capabilities as well. So the cool thing was we got to work with both. So we worked with the digital business, who was like reimagining the app, reimagining what messaging looked like, was reimagining what kind of the delivery looked like, as well as the Canadian carrier, which was essentially our joint customer to transform their service. Like kind of TELUS Digital, we have folks around the world. So the cool thing was we could sort of have an always-on like delivery model where we were learning, testing. I think the cool thing with Connect is that ability to A/B test.
Yeah.
So you try something on the IVR, you get real-time analytics. Is it working? Do we take a percentage of our customers down a certain route? And so in the early days, TELUS was diverting a small fraction of traffic, and then when they got comfort, they opened it up more and more and more, just to ensure that the outcomes were the same as this project scaled. That's reasonably unusual for like contact center software, that ability to kind of be agile and test and learn. And so where we came in, I suppose, was both as a platform player, as a kind of a CX expert, and as a software layer that kind of pulls it all together. And as well as sort of an extra pair of hands to augment Jamie's team to make sure that the delivery was kind of successful. You know, in telco and in other regulated industries, you don't have the luxury of messing up because you have so, like if you mess up, it's front page news. So you kind of have to really make sure that like when you launch, you're ready for prime time.
And I think that test and learn that you mentioned overnight is just so critical, because when we first launched, our AHT was maybe a little bit higher than voice, and now it's 30% lower than voice. And so a lot of those things had nothing to do with technology. They had a lot to do with change management and operational tweaks. And we quickly went from a little bit above voice to sub 30 comparative because of that test and learn mentality. And I think that was really key for us to, you know, work our team through the outcomes and to make sure that we were delivering for the customer, because that's what our customers want, right? They want that asynchronous opportunity to not necessarily have to pick up the phone or to have an elongated kind of conversation that isn't urgent. And especially for us during a primetime event like Black Friday, we want to be able to divert, you know, sales calls quickly to handle right away, but not ignore those billing intents like I was mentioning, right? That asynchronous opportunity for us to dump certain intents quickly into an asynchronous environment allowed us to service both at the pace that folks were looking for, and in many cases actually service them with, you know, better first call resolution, because the agent has more time to be able to gather the material that they need, and so the perception from the customer is stronger. So you see a higher first call resolution, see a higher CSAT on the basis of that, and we have that nice kind of workforce management evening out that we were mentioning earlier too. But the ability to work that through operationally with the tweaks, I think we just couldn't have had without that iterative mindset that Jonathan mentions.
What was quite funny, I think, was before we launched on the first day, people were going, well, is anyone actually even going to use this? And like, what's going to happen? And I remember taking a phone call from one of Jamie's colleagues that I think literally the first person that kind of came through Connect in our platform was an 80-year-old lady at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and she had a billing issue.
Oh, wow.
And it was like it was sort of just interesting. It just proved the point that you kind of want to meet customers where they are when they're ready to be served, and kind of to funnel them onto a specific channel when it suits you is kind of the opposite of like what a great customer experience is. So that was kind of funny, and I'll remember that
not the profile we thought, right?
Not the profile we thought, and a little old 80-year-old lady solving a billing issue with TELUS at 2 a.m. was like the first customer inquiry to come through kind of Zendesk and Amazon Connect. So that was kind of cool.
No, I love that, because when we talk about Connect, we say we want to meet the customers through a channel that they choose at a time that they choose. So having an 80-year-old lady come in at 2 a.m. in the morning, I think that's the perfect example for that.
And it shows the UX and the UI that it was such that a person who's probably not a digital native can start in voice, transition to in-app, resolve an issue. And the cool thing, the way that TELUS implemented it was, like once we think it's resolved, then we come back in the app and say, hey, did we solve your issue? And if it's yes, great, the case is closed. If it's not, it triggers an outbound call or an outbound message to then turn it into a proactive like escalation. So you can actually get comfort that that 80-year-old has had her issue kind of solved, which is really cool.
I like what you're saying, that you're taking the concept of a CI/CD thing, but moving it from a pure technology and a software development and a deployment, but into a customer service arena in terms
Shift
of...
left,
Yes, exactly. Jonathan, could you talk a little more about the broader engagement of how you guys came in, how you did the discovery, and how did you prioritize what you're going to do in terms of what comes first, what comes later, and that journey that you took?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to take credit, but the reality is TELUS staffed up a number of experts within their team. So they cherry-picked folks out of the actual contact center. They cherry-picked folks out of their Canadian and their Manila contact centers, domain experts. They had AI experts. They had workflow experts. And then we augmented that with our team. So that sort of expert group then crafted the stages towards an MVP. And then I think once we got to an MVP, there was a bunch of things that were missing. Things like call scripts, things like payment links, things like popping attributes. So once sort of those become apparent, we sort of prioritize based on that team telling us the level of importance. And then kind of built it, as I said, like on a 24/7 basis.
And back to the feedback loop. I mean, when I've been talking to agents about what they love about what we've implemented, some of what Jonathan just mentioned around the call scripts, the ability to kind of check grammar, lengthen, shorten, tailor content, translate content, has really made a huge difference in their lives, and some of the things that they really highlight about what they love about the system that we've put in place.
So that's using Amazon Bedrock and using some of the Anthropic models underneath, essentially as like an AI co-pilot to support the agents. And so in the translation use case, somebody speaking French, that kind of message could be translated so the agent gets a quick sense, hey, since this is urgent and I don't speak French, I need to handle it now, or do I escalate this to kind of an agent in Quebec in the morning when they're online? So things that a few years ago weren't even possible, like now putting that power in the hands of the agents is super cool.
And the ability to service French out of Manila is a huge cost advantage from an operational standpoint that has been a key part of making that business case that we talked about.
So I think that dovetails very nicely into the next part of what I wanted to talk about is, talk to us about where you are now. What are the benefits you've seen come through in the time that you've been live?
Yeah.
And whether it's soft metrics that you track, or even if it's perception, NPS, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what are the hard metrics that you have tracked and seen improvements?
So a couple of things. I mentioned AHT has dropped about 30% compared to voice. Our first call resolution is up significantly. But one of the metrics that really surprised us the most that we hadn't planned for was the attrition advantage that this tooling gave us. We have a 50% lower attrition for agents that are using this technology than who aren't, which was really incredible. I think that unto itself has such cascading benefits in our enterprise, right? Because if you think about the cost of training and onboarding and seeking out of new talent, being able to keep people in the mix is really key. And I think that's, a really, it's one of the greatest proof points, I think, about the ease of use of the platform and how wonderful it is as of a tool. People want to be on that queue and they want to be doing that work and they want more and
nice
more
to
of
have
it.
agents fighting to work on the Zendesk platform. I love it. That's a good testimonial.
We love it. And they have specific parts of the Zendesk platform that they are huge advocates of. I mean, preparing to talk today, I went out and grabbed some new quotes from the team, and it was not a hard exercise to grab fan quotes about how great it's been to use. But that attrition metric, I think, is just something that's really blown us out of the water. But I think where we're looking at is how can we continue to broaden our use there, right? So as Jonathan mentioned, we have a lot of use on the mobile app. We're looking at other channels that we can continue to activate that asynchronous messaging. We've broadened it across business units. We're using it in our health business as well as in the kind of core telco business, which has been really key for us because, again, really complex, intense, lots of information to be able to pull from to service a customer calling in. And now we're starting to look at how can we continue to augment with AI on pre-call, during call, post-call activities. And if y'all have been walking the floor this week, there's been a ton of talk about agentic and how can we queue up post-call activities through those agentic workflows. And so that's something that we're looking at. We're looking at how do we look at sentiment and analysis and the QA piece and feed that into training and make sure that we have the right things in place to get people onto the floor as quickly as possible. And then how do we use co-pilots to make sure that we're arming those agents with the right knowledge to continue to make those calls more efficient or more effective. One of the really important parts of the way that we're thinking about our human agents is how can we turn those folks into cross-sell, upsell salespeople, right? And I think that's really the power of how we're thinking about our teams worldwide is, servicing, supporting the customer, but also turning those into, RGU opportunities. And that's working hard for us too. And without the technology, the agent's covering such a broad span of potential intents and how do you make the right recommendations. Without the tech, you can't do both of those things. And so that's been really, really big for us.
Jamie mentioned their health use cases, which is super interesting to me. So, I mean, one of the most expensive costs there, those agents are highly specialized.
Yes.
because they're medical practitioners. So actually the quicker you can get them onto the next call, A, obviously you can help more lives, but B, you're kind of reducing your operating costs.
Yeah.
And what we found when we spoke to those agents is they're sometimes spending up to 30 minutes in post-call work. Just because it's so regulated, they need summaries in certain forms. If there are certain words used, they have to manually write that in. And there was a full structure, and actually they changed one of our product features based on that feedback because we actually saw how they did their post-call work. We wrapped a template around it so that the AI could kind of fill out the case notes based on the TELUS way of kind of filling it out.
Yep.
And so then the human agent actually can just fill in some of the gaps in case the AI kind of missed something. But you're turning
50% reduction in post-call work.
Yeah, so you're taking that from 30 minutes potentially to 15. I didn't know that, so I've got another stat. But not only that, you're actually being able to let that medical practitioner get on to what they love doing, which is helping patients and not like doing the admin. So that was really cool to see that as well.
Yeah.
So I'll add two things here. One is, you talked about churn, and another customer of Zendesk that I've had the opportunity to speak to, 5-Iron Golf. They, you might have been to their golf.
There's one here in Vegas, Puneet. We might go later.
Oh yeah, yeah. They have a beautiful place in Vegas that you guys should definitely go. But when they started out, obviously they were growing. They added more customer service agent, but at a point they started leveraging technology, and they grew their business 80% without adding an additional agent, a human agent. So they leveraged technology, they leveraged automation, things like booking a slot at one of their simulators. They didn't need to go to an agent to that. So they looked at what are the low-hanging fruits that we can automate and bring the really places where you need a human interaction to the agent. So I love that stat where they grew 80% without adding an additional agent. The other thing, I'm losing my chain of thought here now. Anyways, if I remember, we'll come back to it. But yeah, I think that built on to what's the next thing that you're looking at. What are you excited about from a continuous improvement perspective? What are the new features that you want to look at deploying and continuing to innovate and be leading edge?
I think the co-pilots piece is a big one, right? All these agents are handling very complex intense, and I think being able to surface the right information at the right time is really key. So I think that's an important one. And then I think the analytics piece, and the sentiment analysis continues to be a key focus for us because it's really, I think about it like an infinity loop, right? The way that we train, the way that we handle a call, the way that we do post-call kind of QA work, it all feeds itself together, right? And so, if any of you were here for the session before ours, folks were talking about data foundations and making sure that the right information is available to feed these systems. And so one of the things that we're looking at is how do we make sure we have the right systems connected to the foundation that we've built so we continue to power it, make it smarter, and take advantage of what we already have in place. But that infinity loop, kind of every feature that we can touch along that is important for us right now because it's going to continue to drive the satisfaction on the agent side and get us better outcomes for our customers.
So look, I'm 3 weeks into Zendesk. That almost makes me a product expert. I think along the same vein, some of the things that I've been really interested in, so historically we just did contact center, very heavy on voice, largely Amazon Connect. I think coming into the Zendesk family, the cool thing is exactly what Jamie said. We get the best of Amazon Connect and we get the best of Zendesk. We were here in Vegas a few months ago where Zendesk showed some of their support capabilities, where it looks over the entirety of all of the transcripts and the cases and starts to suggest knowledge articles.
Yes.
So rather than forcing agents to write them or an admin, which is always a pain, it actually automatically populates those support knowledge articles. So for me, that was like a moment of wow. Like you can see a single button and it starts to spin up. I think some of the other things that are interesting is some of the automated QA. So taking the transcripts from contact lens, taking the sentiment, taking the screen recordings, and thinking about how in the same singular platform you can do QA and drive insights back into the business. How you can schedule and forecast kind of for agents. How you can use the entirety of that like data asset that's flowing from the contact center to understand the root cause, like why are people reaching out in the first place? And actually the best call is one that never happened. Like how do you actually stop the person having to pick up the phone in the first place?
Absolutely.
So being part of a much bigger portfolio and kind of plugging the contact center into the rest of the business, I think that's the real opportunity for Zendesk, and that's the opportunity for a partner like TELUS for us to take that innovation into other customers. The thing we should have mentioned is Zendesk and TELUS shares probably, in addition to their own carrier, probably about 100 customers as well. So Jamie and I have this kind of cool opportunity to take everything that we learned in Canada, in the TELUS carrier, out to those 100 other customers. Nice. And I was out with one last night, which is a large rentals business. And they said, like, we love TELUS, we love Zendesk. Like, what can you do to kind of bring some of this innovation that they're seeing here to life? So I think that's the kind of what's next for us. How do we bring that to customers?
Awesome. So I remembered what I was forgetting earlier was about the feedback loop.
It was too late at night at 5 Iron Golf for you.
Yeah. One of the things that at Connect and AWS generally we are very proud of is that a lot of our roadmap is influenced by our customers, and we have this robust process where we listen to customers and partners to say, what do you see is not there in Connect, or what are your customers asking for, and build those in. So almost 80+% of what features we launch are direct correlated to feedback that we've received. So that's what I'd forgotten earlier. But you brought up an interesting term, agentic AI, and that's been big. In the few minutes that we have left, I would love to hear both of your perspectives about agentic AI. Where do you think it's going? How do you think about adopting it in your environment? Not only for the telecom part of it, but for the digital business as you go to more customers.
Yeah, so let's forget the fancy AI part of it for a second and talk about one of the big pain points I think that a lot of folks have in their operation. It's that post-call or after you take a call, there's a bunch of workflow that gets kicked off, oftentimes by the agent, right? There's a lot of back office, there's a lot of things around order management and things of that nature. And so, the thing that I'm the most excited about, the agentic piece, is when we start to really talk about, full-on deflection and conversation agents and kicking that straight into an agentic environment in the back office, it really takes the efficiency that we've all begun to see in the call center, and it brings it upstream, shift left, right? It also brings it downstream into where I think the other major opportunity in almost every enterprise is, which is all of that workflow that happens throughout the rest of the business. And I think there's going to be a ton of innovation there over the next 6-12 months, and we're seeing it already, and it's a huge part of the conversation this week. And I think it's one of the most exciting things in our space right now.
I mean, the reality is we haven't seen any customers that do it well yet. I mean, most of these suck big time. I think that'll change, and we're seeing it move really quickly. But I mean, we're telling customers like crawl, walk, run.
Yes.
We have some customers that are slowly replacing their IVR with like an agentic bot that's starting with some of the new voice-to-voice models. It's now possible. At Zendesk, we have a company called Ultimate, which kind of powers sort of all the Gen 3 bots, and you've got all the procedures in one place. I think the cool thing about that is it's built into the same platform that runs your contact center, that has your cases, that has your data. So you're not going and buying a bot platform and bolting it on. It's actually built into the bones of Zendesk.
It's critical.
So I think that's going to be a competitive advantage for us in the future, and it's kind of exciting to see some of these use cases come to life. But I think for us, like the voice-to-voice kind of LLMs, and I'm really interested to see how Novasonic starts to play into Connect. I think that's going to be a game changer.
Absolutely.
I think you used a key word for me when I talk to my customers and partners about agentic AI is use cases. It's, for every new technology that comes up and starts going through the hype cycle, whether it was 2 years ago, generative AI, and generally speaking, AI, ML before that, I think use case is the key word. Finding the right use case, finding those low-hanging fruits, and a lot of times these become science projects. So finding that right use case where you can drive impact, whether it is customer service or any metrics that you want to measure success on, or even ROI, and making sure that you're getting the right return out of making that time and effort investment. Those use cases is finding the right ones are key. Because otherwise you don't do that, you kind of create a perception within the organization, oh, this is just hype, or this is just a science project. Why?
Sometimes
I
just
don't
doing
care.
one makes all the difference.
It
I
does,
told
the
a
right
story
one, yeah.
yesterday. I lost my wedding ring when I was in Vegas on my last trip. It was actually a Zendesk conference. It was legitimate work. But I got back to the hotel and I was devastated. How am I going to tell my wife I've lost my wedding ring in Vegas? For those of you, definitely don't repeat that. But it was a fully automated, quasi-agentic experience with Chubb, my insurer. They kind of took me through a flow, asked me what the issue was. I kept it very brief. I didn't want to have that conversation with the agentic AI. And it got to the end and it said, look, now we have to escalate to a human to do the final approval. So it was mostly automated, human touch at the end. The money was in my bank in 5 days. I was like, wow, that's a magical experience. Yeah. And that gave me a little bit of an aha moment as well. Just fix one thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
The claim, a single claim process. And I've told hundreds of people that story now about Chubb. So it's I think if a business can kind of figure out where the biggest pain points are and just start to automate one by one, you can have a really big impact.
All right. Any last thoughts before we open up for QA?
Don't lose your ring in Vegas. No.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think start small,
small.
Test and learn. I think the TELUS example, A/B testing in a contact center, I think is reasonably unusual. On your website, you can A/B test, but I think now the technology exists to kind of do little experiments really fast, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I think continuing to include voice of the customer and voice of the employee in that is what the fuel for that test and learn
100%.
environment, for sure.
Yeah. I definitely +1 on that because I've done some work around organizational change management, and one of the bigger things I see with a lot of enterprises is that they treat some of these projects as an IT project. It is much more than that. You have to take the entire organization with you. These are things that impact internally your culture and externally your brand, and have the potential of impacting it on the good side and the bad side. So bring your organization with you, bring different teams, marketing, finance, HR, customer service, everybody. Then you can drive that positive impact in the right direction.